What if I told you that one law changed the trajectory of millions of kids and lowered the divorce rate by 25%? And what if I told you 4 more states have followed suit with as many as 20 others considering such changes? What is the law? Equal and shared parenting. Kentucky was a pioneer in this area, enacting a law, House Bill 528, in 2018, and that created a rebuttable presumption that joint custody and equal shared parenting time are in the best interest of the children. What is the default standard? This law established a 50-50 custody arrangement as the legal starting point for judges in divorce cases involving children. This means the court must start with the assumption that both fit parents should have equal rights, responsibilities, and time with their children. This law created a rebuttable presumption. The rebuttable nature of the presumption allows a judge to deviate from the equal split if there is evidence to show it is not in the best interest of the child, particularly in documented cases of domestic violence or abuse, to award 50-50 custody. A recent Wall Street Journal article blew the lid on these positive stats. In the article, it talks about divorce rate trends. According to an analysis by the National Center for Family and Marriage Research at Bowling Green State University, Kentucky's divorce rate fell by 25% between 2016 and 2023. This decline was significantly greater than the nationwide decline of 18% over the same period. What is the effect on family court cases? Early reports also indicated a decrease in family court caseloads and domestic violence filings following the implementation of the partial version of the shared parenting law in 2017, with a further drop after the full law took effect in 2018. What is the proposed correlation and rationale? Advocates and commentators suggest the shared parenting law is a major contributing factor to the drop in divorce rate due to the following reasons. First, there is a reduced incentive to litigate. The presumption of equal custody may remove the incentive for one parent to endure an expensive and prolonged legal battle to avoid being reduced to an every other weekend parent. Next, cost versus benefit. Some research suggests that the divorce rate declines when couples perceive the cost of leaving, which now includes potentially losing custody advantage or facing a more complex custody arrangement, to outweigh the benefits. Third, it creates an incentive to cooperate. Knowing that 50-50 custody is the default may encourage parents to cooperate, reconcile, or at the very least, engage in a less adversarial co-parenting discussion and mediation. Last, child support considerations. A later 2023 revision to Kentucky's child support guidelines, which adjusts obligation based on parenting time, further incentivizes parents to seek more time with their children, potentially reinforcing the 50-50 standard. Now, what is the national impact? Kentucky's law has become the model, with at least 4 other states, Arkansas, West Virginia, Florida, and Missouri, passing similar versions of the shared custody bill, and approximately 20 more considering similar legislation. So what do those who disagree with these stats say? It would be disingenuous for me not to talk about the naysayers. An alternate theory is the divorce rate is falling nationwide. The national trend, the divorce rate is decreasing across the United States. Kentucky's decline of 25% between 2016 and 2023 outpaced the national decline of 18% for the same period. But critics argue that Kentucky's drop is still part of a larger, pre-existing demographic trend, and that is millennials' behavior. Studies show that millennials are generally getting married later, are more educated, and are staying married longer, which is cited as a main driver of the national decline of both marriage and divorce rates. This broad generational shift likely accounts for a significant portion of the decline in Kentucky as well. The decline may not represent marital success. Critics, including researchers at the Bowling Green Family and Marriage Center, argue that divorce rate typically goes down when couples believe the cost of leaving outweighs the benefits. This includes the fear of losing children. This is especially important for mothers. For the parent who was historically more likely to receive primary custody, the new presumption of a 50-50 split can increase the custodial cost of divorce. This argument suggests that some women who initiate the majority of divorces may choose to remain in an unhappy marriage or even a harmful marriage because they fear losing the majority of their time with their children and being forced to co-parent with an uncooperative or abusive former spouse. A major concern from domestic violence advocates is that the presumption of equal custody may force a victim of abuse to stay in the marriage. They fear that leaving would require them to prove abuse to the courts to overcome the 50-50 presumption, which is a difficult legal burden, thus potentially putting the children at risk with the abusive parent for half of the time. Now, in my opinion, this is a really bad argument as to the law, as the law includes safeguards that automatically overturn the presumption in cases involving domestic violence. And actually, the weakest part of Kentucky's law is the fact that the presumption of 50-50 is overcome by simply mentioning there may be domestic violence. Yes, there are documented cases shortly after the law was implemented where lawyers simply mentioned to the judge that they were potentially going to be making domestic violence arguments, and that under Kentucky law, this rebuts the presumption. Next, financial incentives for litigation. There are child support concerns. The later revision to Kentucky's child support guideline, which ties child support credits to the number of overnights a parent has, is criticized for potentially encouraging parents, particularly fathers, to seek 50-50 custody, primarily to reduce their child support obligation rather than from a pure desire for shared parenting. We've heard this argument for years in the equal and shared parenting community, and quite frankly, as an attorney who has helped thousands of men, this is simply a lie. Honestly, the best argument I have against equal and shared parenting lowering divorce rates is a statistical argument. I have a video on this that talks about the difficulty of statistically measuring divorce and placing percentages on it. Numbers can be manipulated, but I don't believe that that is the case in this situation. All in all, these statistics appear to bolster the argument for equal and shared parenting. And with 10% of states having active equal and shared parenting laws, with another 20 discussing the implementation, the drop in Kentucky's divorce rates appear to be a huge win for fathers everywhere. So what do you think? Do you think equal and shared parenting helps reduce divorce? Or do you think it's an uncorrelated result of wider demographic trends? Let me know in the comments.